When it comes to tailgating, you're in a league of your own, so you gotta pick a bun that plays at the same level. Ballpark Buns, otherwise known as America's favorite buns, always deliver the goods. Find Ballpark Buns near you at ballparkbuns.com.
The Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is presented by ZipRecruiter. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy with ZipRecruiter, the highest rated hiring site in America. And now our listeners can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
We are back. Welcome to a fresh week of the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. My name is Field Yates.
Hey,
and
just
Matthew,
curious.
Just
when you say,
let me
hang on, I got just, I just got a question.
Just
got a quick question. I know. Well, you'll get it one time at some point, just not today. When you say a fresh week, do you mean that just basically it's all new episodes? We're not doing repeats, or is this your way? You're using your hip young lingo, like it's fresh. Like Kool and the Gang had a song called Fresh.
She's fresh.
Right, like that. So that's like a good hip reference for you because you're the young one.
Gotcha.
Right?
No,
Is that how you meant it? Like
Here's
fresh?
The thing is that if every single person dissected every single word that I spoke or you spoke or Stephania spoke, they would just spend their day trying to figure out what we were trying to say. You overthink things too much.
I do. I admit this.
Right. So,
but I'm curious.
Okay, so here's my new rule.
When I was a kid, my favorite, this is true story, my favorite books were all the Curious George books. I loved the Curious George books as a child. And in fact, I love children's art. If you go into my office at home, I have some Curious George art hanging on the wall. And it's because I'm curious. So I'm curious. When you use the word fresh, that's all it is. I'm just curious. It's not a bad thing to be curious.
Can we
trying to want to learn. Right, Stephania? I mean, you've got a lot of degrees. You had to have been curious at some point in your life before you knew everything.
You know
curious in college, Stephania?
You know what else helps you learn? Listening.
Yeah, I'm working on that one.
Daniel, can we work on a rule where Matthew's mic just goes silent for the first 30 seconds or begins silent for the first 30 seconds of the podcast?
Yeah, we can do that.
And you have the editorial right to keep it silent for the remainder of the podcast if you so choose.
I'll leave if you guys want. I'm happy to leave. I get paid the same whether I do this podcast or not. I'm
maybe
good.
On to something.
Wait, you get paid to do this podcast? I need to get a better agent.
Yes.
You may be on to something here. We have a lot coming up on today's show, including, of course, a recap of all of the Week 3 preseason games. There was a slightly different feel to Week 3 of preseason this year than there has been in basically every year, but still the most notable week of preseason action on the calendar. We are now 10 days away from the start of the NFL regular season. We did have a poll that we posted on Friday before we signed off. The question was simple. Who are you drafting first, with the options being Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara? Not first overall, but of those two, who would you prefer in a draft? Saquon Barkley, of course, the Giants rookie. Alvin Kamara, the Saints sensation last year. And Saquon Barkley takes home 57% of the votes, as voted on at the Fantasy Focus handle on Twitter. Are either of you surprised?
By the poll results?
Yeah.
No. I am not. I mean, the hype on Saquon Barkley is pretty real. It's fresh, some might even say. But it's getting a little bit stale because it has been so tremendous and it's been so exorbitant and it's been so. I'm trying to think of other big words.
You're not really using them correctly.
I'm not.
Here's the thing. I know.
Pretty much
hit the max in your vocabulary. But I think what you are trying to say is that for a long time, this hype has been there. It's not like something new was discovered.
Ever since he was drafted.
Saquon Barkley hasn't done anything the last couple of weeks because of the hamstring. But he did have that one electrifying play the first time he appeared on the field. And I think people said, hey, this is who he can be.
But I think
that's why the poll went the way it did.
And to your point, Stephania, I mean, I think people really expect a huge amount of volume of work here for Saquon Barkley. They expect an improved offense, an improved offensive line. We've talked a lot about the fantasy-friendly nature of Pat Shurmur's offense field. Where would you have voted in this poll?
I would have voted Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. And Stephania, I'm curious, knowing what we know now, and it's still sort of shrouded in mystery, but knowing what we know about Saquon Barkley's hamstring injury, rookie running back hamstring injury already in the preseason, how would you have voted in this poll?
I would have voted Barkley. Just because I think volume. We've heard the Saints say...
You don't have a concern for him health-wise. Rookie running back already dealing with a hamstring injury.
Let me qualify this. I have a concern for anyone who has a soft tissue injury in the preseason that it could recur. That's what all the teams are concerned about, and that is why the Giants are not playing him. You see him back in practice, and I think the fact he's back in practice, all those things, he's going to play week 1. I'm not worried. Is it in the back of my mind this could happen? Sure. But it's not going to downgrade him for me, if that's what you're asking.
That is what I was asking. So, and it's important to note, Field Yates, because there's a bit of an announcement. Here's why I asked why Stephania was doing that. Do you know Stephania Bell has officially joined the rankers of ESPN.com.
I know. There could have been a lot of things.
The Navy?
No, I thought you were going to say the Athletic, right?
Right,
Isn't that like
there's always a chance of that, by the way.
The Athletic,
yeah, exactly, right?
No, Stephania Bell has joined the ranks of the rankers, if you will. Correct. So Stephania, who is arguably who is our smartest person here in the fantasy
Which
staff.
is amazing to me, Field Yates. I mean, I'm curious. Let's you and I discuss this for a second. Stephania, I don't want to speak for you, but for me personally, Stephania is one of, if not the smartest person I know.
One of not the smartest person I know. People I know, right?
People I know, she's wicked smart. I'll put it in language you understand. She's wicked smart.
Yeah.
And she's definitely smarter than you.
I think it's wicked smart.
That too. She's definitely smarter than you. She's smarter than me. She's smarter than all the rankers.
Right.
All due respect to Tristan Cockcroft, Eric Carabell, Mike Clay. She's smarter than all of us. Which is why it's so baffling to me, Stephania Bell, that you would want to do this. I mean, here it is. First off, it's super tough to be a woman in media. It's super hard, right? And then in social media, you get criticized left and right, 6 ways till Sunday. And you're doing all the injury stuff now. And so now you want to put more opinions out for people to yell at you about?
I'm developing my thick skin.
It's
Every year I
unbelievable.
add another layer. So, I bring it on. Not only that, I announced it when they went up. So I invited the criticism right away. Look, because I understand that rankings are opinions.
Right.
That they are not hard science for me. And I'm very open about that my rankings are more qualitative than quantitative. Mike Clay does all kinds of numerical analysis. I do not. I have a bias towards injuries. Everybody knows that. So you know where I'm coming from, but these are my thoughts.
Another announcement that we...
Alshon Jeffrey, wide receiver 36. I mean, Stephania could not rank him lower.
Another announcement from last week that we would just remind you of is that if you already are an ESPN Plus subscriber, that means you are now an ESPN Insider subscriber, actually effective tomorrow, Tuesday, August 28th. Those two platforms essentially merge. If you subscribe to one, you're now a subscriber of both of them, which is good news. People like Matthew Barry.
It's unbelievably great news. So it's super exciting because if you enjoy our content and if you're watching this on Twitter or you're listening to this at some point, my assumption is that you on some level enjoy the content of the four of us. And so Stephania sometimes writes pieces for Insiders. Field Yates is literally an NFL insider. That is his title here at the company. He writes pieces for Insider. And Secret Squirrel and I, of course, have the fantasy show on ESPN Plus, which now with your ESPN Plus subscription. And what's happening is if you subscribe to ESPN Insider, that will turn into ESPN Plus. ESPN Insider is going away. It will all be ESPN Plus tomorrow. And so included in an ESPN Plus subscription is written content with people like Field or Casey Joyner or Mike Clay or Eric Carabell, really smart fantasy analysts. And also, you've got Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and Keith Law and baseball and Buster Olney and so many great, writers that are part of that. So that'll be ESPN Plus. And then you get, of course, all the great stuff on ESPN Plus at the TV channel.
I have a question, Matthew.
Yes, I have an answer.
If I was a RotoPass subscriber, does that mean that I will now have ESPN Plus because I got insiders through that?
That is 100% correct. And in fact, you can use the promo code PLUS to celebrate this. PLUS. You can use the promo code PLUS to get 10% off rotopass.com, and you get as part of your RotoPass subscription, you get a full year subscription to ESPN Plus, which includes all the work that was formerly known as Insider and UFC fights, MLB games, college football, and the entire 30 for 30 library, the Kobe Bryant show, and of course, me and Secret Squirrel in silly costumes.
Rewind. Fantasy news from the National Football League. This is the instant replay.
What more could you possibly ask for? Let's get to all the games because there were tons over the weekend. We begin on Friday, the Battle of New York, if you will. The Giants beat the Jets.
I will.
Okay. The Giants
it seemed like he was asking, Stephania, so yes, I will.
The Giants beat the Jets 22-16. Let's get to the injuries first here, Stephania, because Evan Ingram suffered one for the G-Men.
Right. He suffered a concussion, is now in that concussion return to play protocol, and part of the progress back is doing some light cardio work once they're cleared. He did some light running, so it shows that he's making some progress. Obviously, he's not going to play in Thursday night's game, but he has a lot of time, so you feel optimistic about week 1.
Seems like a minor concussion field.
Yeah.
Come on, we don't make light of those, Matthew. We should not, but Evan Ingram, as Stephania said, currently we're not making fun of the concussion. We're making fun of the people that don't understand all the work that Stephania has done around concussions, that there is no such thing as a minor or a major concussion. You still see people talking about that.
There are no qualifiers.
There are no qualifiers.
Moving on, though, he is in the concussion protocol for now. We have no idea about his availability for week 1. We will continue to monitor this. If you're looking for a backup Giants tight end to be on the radar, I'm just going to tell you there really isn't one. If you are approaching your draft right now, Matthew, I think you may have to, for the short term, plan on a different tight end starting for you in week 1.
Field, one of the questions going into or coming out of week 3 of the preseason is, how does this affect your ranks or Stephania's ranks or my ranks? Like, did anything that happened this week change your perception of certain players? And so we're going to talk about performance, obviously, coming up, but Evan Ingram, are you lowering him at all in your rankings because of this injury?
No, I'm not, because first of all, I don't know if he's going to miss any time. Second of all, if he does miss time, I feel comfortable that I can take Evan Ingram about where I'd been taking him previously and then find a fill-in tight end for a week or two, whether it's an Austin Hooper type, a guy who's being undrafted, a guy who's being drafted late, and say, you know something? I feel pretty good about figuring it out for a week or two or however long I need for Evan Ingram before he returns to my lineup.
Where do you have him ranked?
5, Mike.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm at tight end 7, Starfania. Where do you have him?
Yeah, well, I have to pull up the rankings.
Well, that's up from where you were on Friday when you had him at 9. So you moved him up 2 slots since our discussion last week on the Giants.
Let me see. I don't think I did. You know what? You are correct. You remember my rankings better than I do. I do have him at 9. I thought I had him at 7. His ADP is tight end 7. That's what it is. That's where I was getting confused. I'm at tight end 9. I'm nervous about him. I'm not in this, not because of this injury, just I think there's going to be tremendous regression there.
Well, I think it's fair that there could be regression. He'd also still be a top 5 tight end based off of ability and performance. And I think before that concussion, by the way, on Friday night, like I was preparing myself to be like, you know something? This guy's just a ridiculous talent. Like
he's unbelievably talented.
On the field. Yeah. So just when in doubt, sometimes you got to bet on the talent. Speaking of talent, one of his pass catching teammates is Sterling Shepard. And a reminder, Odell Beckham Jr. and Saquon Barkley did not play on Friday night, so it's not as if the the stats that you see on Friday night are a direct indication of how the Giants might look come the regular season. Sterling Shepard, 7 catches for 78 yards on 7 targets. Very effective day. Matthew, did he do enough to move the needle for you to move him up in the rankings?
No, he doesn't really. Look, he's a talented wide receiver. I just think honestly, like, Eli might be being underdrafted. I think I have Eli at QB 23. I think he's going as like something as QB 30. So I have him as a little bit of a sleeper, like a low end QB 2. Shepard's a nice player, but I just think he is at best the 4th option on this offense.
Yeah, I feel that same way as well, which is why on Thursday, whatever it was that we wrapped up the Giants and the Eagles for Double Trouble, that's basically what we said. So I don't think that anything moved the needle for me from this game.
It's just a reminder that if something were to happen to Odell Beckham Jr., or if for some reason they don't get that contract situation figured out, and after this year, Beckham moves on to another team.
Yeah.
Shepard's a real nice player.
Let's move along because I think there's more pertinent info from future games, including the Broncos and the Redskins, where 2 backfields of note. Royce Freeman, another game, another touchdown. So far this preseason, 15
How
carries.
do we feel about Rolls Royce as a nickname? I don't love it.
I think it's okay. I think we could aim higher. I think it's a little bit too...
Feels a little obvious. Feels a little on the nose. A little,
15
little
carries,
on the nose.
Let's work.
15 carries, 84 yards. We need Boomer here to assess a nickname for Royce Freeman. So, 15 carries, 84 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Royce Freeman this preseason.
He's scored in every game. Devontae Booker is just a guy, and I know they keep insisting on rolling him out there, and they will maybe to start, but sooner rather than later, and I do believe it's going to be sooner, at some point, and I do think it will be sooner, Royce Freeman's going to be the starting running back of the Denver Broncos. He's going to be a true workhorse back. I'm his running back 16, and when we look back a year from now, we may say that was too low. I believe I'm the highest on him of the ESPN rankers, and His current ADP is running back 18. He continues to rise as he performs in this preseason. He's got all the looks. I mean, just in terms of the acceleration,
here's a question.
The vision. What do you got?
Here's a question from Keith along those lines.
Not cool, Keith. What do you got?
Yeah, Alex Reed here on Twitter wants to know, over the past week, Royce Freeman has pulled ahead of Derrick Henry and Allen Robinson in ADP and is closing in on Kenyon Drake and Jarvis Landry. Are you okay with that price point?
Obviously. You guys know how I feel about Kenyon Drake. And while I like Landry as a player, Field and I had the debate about Gordon versus Landry last week. I'll always take a running back over a wide receiver in the early rounds because the position is so deep. So I have no problem taking a Royce Freeman, who I believe could, I don't know that there is a Kareem Hunt, a rookie that will lead the NFL in rushing and will finish as a top 5 fantasy running back, this year that's going in the mid rounds the way Kareem Hunt was last year. But to me, Royce Freeman is the closest thing to it. I mean, he's going in the 5th round, right? Overall in the overall, the overall ranks here. I'm looking real quick. Yeah, where is Royce Freeman? I'll find him. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, he's basically going in the 5th round on ESPN.com. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, he would be my choice for who is this year's Kareem Hunt, a running back going in the 5th or 6th round that could wind up, top 10, top 12 at the position. I think it's Royce Freeman. Again, remember, Field, last year, Broncos top 8 in the NFL in rushing attempts.
So let's get along to other players on this offense, Matt, because we've got a ton of games to cover, including Emmanuel Sanders, who looked good. 4 of 8 targets caught for 61 yards and a sweet reverse touchdown for 32 yards and a run. Emmanuel Sanders, we're talking about this before the show. Does he just feel like he's being just overlooked in the pre-draft process?
100%. I have a 10 lists of 10 column coming out on Thursday, and one of my lists, my annual 10 list of 10, is unsexy guys that when you draft them at your draft, no one's going to be like, oh man, I wanted that guy. And no one's going to be like, ooh, hey. No one's going to do that either, right? The way they will with Saquon. Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The way they will with, Saquon Barkley or Josh Gordon or some of the sexier names. There's nothing sexy about Emmanuel Sanders from a fantasy football perspective, except he's going as wide receiver 29. He's being very undervalued. Emmanuel Sanders makes that list, obviously. I have this unsexy guy list in the column. He's playing a lot more slot this year in the preseason Field, which is something I find pretty interesting. I mean, we just think about what Adam Thielen did in the slot last year with Case Keenum. He seems comfortable. Keenum does throwing to the slot. Remember, from 2014 to 2016, he was just one of 6 wide receivers with at least 1,000 yards receiving and 5 receiving touchdowns every single year. When he's been healthy, he's been productive. And Stephania, he's healthy again.
He is healthy. Yeah, last year he had an ankle injury that kind of nagged at him frequently, so it may have affected his overall productivity.
Adrian Peterson made his Washington debut in this game, and, well, he looked pretty effective. 11 carries for 56 yards. I'll be the first to say I was surprised by how well Adrian Peterson ran. I should not have been, though, because this is a player that, in his best moments last year, looked like a legitimate, star, but he had some excellent moments last year in Arizona.
He looked like Adrian Peterson.
He had times. Yeah, I mean, here's the bottom line with Adrian Peterson. In the right situation, in the right role, he can still be an effective runner in the NFL. He got the first 10 running back carries for the Redskins. I think the question is merely this. When it's preseason and the games don't count and you're not as worried about situational football and you can kind of do what you want to do on offense, it's all well and good. But does either of you buy that Adrian Peterson, the Redskins, are going to be in a spot where they can consistently hand the football to him 20 times a game?
No. I don't. I think their backfield, I still don't understand how their backfield is going to fully play out, and I want to see Chris Thompson in a game situation and see what he's doing. I want to see, who do they even keep really on their roster as their running back? So, I don't feel comfortable at all. I agree with you. It was nice to see him run effectively. So you're not thinking like, oh boy, it's not going to work at all. But as far as volume of work, would I be comfortable drafting him in fantasy? Not really.
Matthew, as our resident Redskins fan, do you feel better about Adrian Peterson today?
I do. And I will say I do think he's going to potentially get that volume. Look, he's going to be the first and second down back. He's going to be the goal line back. He's not going to be in on passing downs. It really comes down to what you think of the Redskins defense. And I actually think the Redskins defense is going to be better this year. I think Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne are really going to make a difference there. It's a nice young secondary, obviously, after Josh Norman. So if they can stay competitive in games, Jay Gruden likes to run on first down. He does. They're one of the teams higher in the league in terms of running on first down. They like to set up play action. Obviously, the mobility of Alex Smith gives them some flexibility there. Last year, in a season where everything went wrong for the Redskins and their offensive line was completely banged up, they were still 10th in the NFL in terms of goal-to-go rush rate last season. And, I've used this stat with Darius Geis. It falls for Adrian Peterson as well. If you combine Samaje Perine and Rob Kelly into one player, they would have tied third in goal-to-go rushing attempts last year. They weren't particularly effective, which is one of the reasons why they drafted Geis, and now they went on to get Adrian Peterson. Right. Like, Adrian Peterson could average 3.4 yards per carry, but still be an effective fantasy player because he falls into the end zone 8 times this year.
I'm not concerned about the volume for a player like Christian McCaffrey, who was part of the Panthers' winning effort on Friday night against the Patriots.
But let me just wrap up real quickly on Adrian Peterson real quickly. I thought you were going to go something there. I was going to say is it's like I'm not reaching for him, but at his current ADP, which I believe is running back 44, something like that, running back 37. Running back 37 as an RB4, there's definitely upside there. I believe he can easily outperform running back 37. He's not somebody I would want to go into the season with as a starter, but I do believe there's some upside there just because of the role.
I expect his ADP to rise dramatically over the next few weeks. Next couple of weeks, I should say. The Panthers beat the Patriots, as I said. Christian McCaffrey had all sorts of volume. 9 carries for 42 yards on the very first drive. He caught a 17-yard pass. He got 2 carries inside the 5-yard line. He also recovered a fumble of Cam Newton. Christian McCaffrey, we all sort of chuckled at the idea that he would get between 25 and 30 total touches per game this year, which is something that Ron Rivera and Norv Turner subsequently they both stated that. But the idea that Christian McCaffrey could get 20 touches per game after averaging less than 13 last year, this guy could be in for a monster season. Said it once, said it time and time again.
100%. I mean, I've been saying this on McCaffrey for a while. He made the love list as well. I talked about the fact that I wasn't worried about C.J. Anderson. I know there were a lot of people that were out there in the fantasy community that have been talking up C.J. Anderson. I've been like, no, McCaffrey is a perfect fit for what Norv Turner wants to do on offense, and that we all agreed that the 25 to 30 times a game quote from Norv and Ron Rivera were like, okay, that's a bit much, but oh no, make no mistake, Christian McCaffrey is going to have a monster year. I have him at 12 overall in my top 200. And I think I'm too low on him. I haven't done my update yet. It'll be updated later tonight or first thing tomorrow morning after all the games. He'll be in my first round. I mean, I have him as a top 10 fantasy running back, and he'll be a first rounder. I believe he is worthy of a first round pick this year. You guys agree?
Yeah, I'd say so. In a deeper league, anything beyond 10 teams, I would say I could understand that.
So he wouldn't be in your top 10. See, he's in my top 10 overall.
No, he's right on the precipice for me. He's right on the precipice for me. The only concerns are still, like, I think he's going to be better as the between the tackles runner, but he still can be wrapped up and bottled up in a way that other running backs who we are drafting higher, probably are more effective in that regard, right?
Yes, I mean, I don't, but he doesn't need to be great between the tackles. He just needs to be passable.
Right, so I'm not saying I'm moving with like player 20. I've got him at like 13 or 14, right, as opposed to 10 overall.
Fair enough. Starfania, your thoughts? Is he a first rounder for you? First rounder overall in a draft?
First rounder overall.
Yeah. In your top
on the bubble.
If you have pick 10 in a 10-team PPR league, an ESPN standard PPR league, pick 10, and Christian McCaffrey is sitting there at 10, are you taking him?
It is all dependent on who else is available at that time. He's probably closer to early second round for me, but it depends. It depends on how the running backs are going.
The Patriots
let it just be shown here
that I waffled?
Not that you waffled, though you did. That I love Christian McCaffrey and you two hate him. Right? That's a fair analysis, right?
We're doing a Twitter poll right now to ask our listeners if Christian McCaffrey is a first round pick or not.
Vote at Fantasy Focus in that poll. Is he a first round pick in a 10-team PPR league? Is the question on Christian McCaffrey. The Patriots might have maybe a little bit of a wide receiver issue.
It was big news over the weekend. Really big news. Yeah. Huge.
Eric Decker
news,
retired
frankly.
on Sunday. He had, of course, played 8 seasons in the NFL. He was briefly a member of the Patriots. When he signed, many said, like, how far does he vault up your rankings? We said, let's see him make the team first. He, of course, decided to walk away on his own accord.
He retired by posting on Instagram, which, by the way, I gotta feel like this, Stephania, if you agree with me, that when Field Yates decides to hang it up, that's what he's gonna do. He's going to he'll post it on Instagram holding a craft beer and chaping under his arm on some Nantucket
going off into the sunset.
Going on. That's how I feel like you'll post your retirement.
60 years from now, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, in a bow tie and like a salmon colored jacket.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, Eric Decker did retire for the Patriots, which makes an already thin Patriots receiver group even thinner. Now, I don't think any of us were expecting Eric Decker to be a major factor on the fantasy front,
or a big factor.
On the fantasy front. But Philip Dorsett did have 4 catches in the first half and basically ran what amounts to the ones. And especially when you consider that Julian Edelman will be out for the first 4 games of the season, I think is an interesting late round flyer now.
100%. I mean, like, you know me and my love of Cordero Patterson, my soft spot for him. They want to use him more on special teams. I think if you're drafting a Patriots wide receiver that isn't Edelman or Hogan, I think Dorsett is certainly worthy of being a flyer. Listen, and my expectation, by the way, is when they go 3 wide, Dorsett and Edelman is back. You'll have Edelman in the slot and you'll have Hogan and Dorsett on the outside. Like, I think he'll get significant snaps with the team.
Former first-round pick, I get it. He flamed out in Indianapolis. He'll never probably live up to that first-round billing, but a player that has a ton of speed, very agile, I'd say, as well. And when you're playing with Tom Brady,
good things can happen. Good things can happen. He is a player they did go out and trade for.
Yep. Jacoby Brissett was, of course, shipped to him last Labor Day weekend.
Shipped to Indy, yeah.
The Vikings, for Philip Dorsett, the Vikings beat the Seahawks 21-20. For those of you that play Madden, which I know no one plays Madden more in this set than Daniel Dopp. He loves Madden. Daniel, you're an Xbox person though, right?
I am, yeah. Big Xbox guy.
Okay, gotcha. So depending on which console you play on, it could be the B, it could be the circle button. Stephon Diggs had one of the sickest moves of the preseason. It was like a 12-yard catch, but it should have been a 9-yard catch, and he just completely spin moved a Seahawks defender.
He crushed it.
Crushed it. Very nice.
By the way, if you play with Atari, it's just the red button. Like,
do they even make Madden for Atari?
I don't think so.
No,
they did back in the day when I was a kid. When I was a kid, they played. Maybe it was Sega. I'm trying to think.
Sega.
Sega Genesis, yeah.
In any event, the Vikings beat the Seahawks 21-20, and Diggs was one of the stories. I think the question is, and we've had this debate a few times before, Stephania, like, is there a right answer to the Diggs versus Thielen quandary, like in Minnesota?
I don't know. Every time I think I begin to understand it, there's a game like this, and I question my thinking, because I have Thielen ahead of Diggs. But then you see a game like this, I'm like, wow, is he going to be that frequent outlet for Kirk Cousins? He seems to be looking for him a lot. And I don't know that I feel comfortable answering it.
I feel comfortable answering it for you.
Go ahead.
I'll answer it for you.
I'm saying it's an evolution.
Don't worry about it. I got it. I got you.
You definitely?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. You know how this is going to play out for sure?
Yeah, I do, 100%.
Okay. America wants to know.
And
Europe, by the way, for the people who mentioned that they listen in Europe, and
no
when
one
Matthew
said,
yes, they do. They do, and
while
they can watch.
A long lunch.
Thankfully, they can watch us internationally as well. And they said when you choose to look at the camera and say America, they're like, "Hey, I'm a listener too over here in."
I apologize, Europe, but you know what? America first. America first.
Stop it.
USA, Stephania. USA.
Make your point. You're not helping.
Well, that's what I do. That's kind of the shtick of the show. I don't know. Thanks for being new here. Look, the fact of the matter is you want Thielen over Stephon Diggs. The reason I have Adam Thielen over Stephon Diggs, I have Diggs at 16, and frankly, I might be too low on him field. I think, but for me, it's because of the floor of Adam Thielen, which I think is higher than the floor for Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is the more exciting player. If you tell me one of these guys finishes at the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, I'd say it's Stephon Diggs. But I also think if you tell me one of these guys misses 6 games, I'm also thinking it's Stephon Diggs. He has missed multiple games every year he's been in the NFL. Injuries have dogged this player, even in college, Stephania.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons that I ended up with Diggs below Thielen.
Correct. So that is why you...
By the way, I am told we have a listener from the UK watching right now.
All right, well, he's not really a listener. He's a viewer. He's a viewer,
Viewer, okay.
So, but I mean... I think it comes down to draft philosophy field, and I'm curious where you land on this, but I feel like it's, if you're a safer player, Thielen's your guy. If you're more of a swing for the fences type, it is Diggs. It is really floor versus ceiling. We think both guys are top 20 fantasy wide receivers, probably both top 15. They're really talented. It's an either or thing. I have Thielen slightly ahead of Diggs just because of the floor.
I think you've covered pretty much all the real estate that anybody would cover there. So yes, if you feel as though that there is, you're looking I'm
asking where you land.
I feel succinctly the same way. There Their football season.
So you have Thielen over Diggs.
I have to check my rankings right now, but it is like we are
you're splitting hairs because they're so we have them. Yes, we all have them pretty close.
They're right there. I mean, it's right there. Right. I've checked the rankings. I don't know which one I have higher right now. My rankings tell me that I have.
Survey says.
If you come up in a draft field, are you just slamming your pog on the ground and seeing which side comes up?
Honestly, like again, I've got Thielen ahead of Diggs, but it's not as if I feel so strong about it that I would begrudge somebody for taking Diggs over Thielen.
Yeah.
Football season's almost here, and huge cash prizes are up for grabs at DraftKings, the leader in one-week fantasy sports. DraftKings hosting a fantasy contest for Week 1 with $2 million up for grabs, and it's free to enter with your first deposit. Get the app or go to DraftKings.com now and use Focus to play free with your first deposit in the Week 1 play action contest. That's the code FOCUS to play for your share of $2 million. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, so do we have a question here from the masses we want to get to, Daniel? We're just going to keep rolling. Let's keep on moving along with our Saturday and Sunday games. We begin in Chicago, where Stephania
Actually, we're going to talk about Lions and Bucks first.
Oh, we tried to just go right over that.
I had 2 pages open. Let's go right to Lions and the Bucks. High-scoring game, 33-30. Objectively speaking, Peyton Barber has been more utilized and been more effective than Ronald Jones. It's a time for people to realize that the best value in the Tampa Bay backfield is actually Peyton Barber, Matthew Berry?
Yeah. Duh.
Yeah, duh.
Again,
he used up all his big
duh.
words field on the last
obviously
rant that he went on.
Obs.
Here's the thing. I would say if there was a player that I felt like was being hidden because a team, not hidden in the sense that like he's not playing at all, but the team wanted to scale back his workload because they had such great hope for him going into the season. We've seen that time and time. We've seen that before. But I do believe that the Bucks are not as committed to Ronald Jones because of his second-round draft status as some want them to be, right? They're not like just going to, because he's a second-round player, going to utilize him as a starter. Peyton Barber has been effective for them, not just this preseason when he's averaging 5.93 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns, but over the last 5 weeks of 2017, he had 90 total touches. They've relied upon him heavily last year.
He was 15th in rushing yards over those final 5 weeks there. He's currently going as running back 41. He is an unbelievable value in the 12th round.
Yeah.
I don't believe this is a fluke. I think it is going to take an injury to Peyton Barber for Ronald Jones to get a significant sniff of the carries. Like, they'll work him more and more into it, but they like Peyton Barber, who is a young player and who's performed well every time he's gotten a chance.
2 questions here would be this. Obviously, if you're in the 12th round, we are saying it's a very worthwhile value to select Peyton Barber. However, would you make a move to more aggressively draft him? And then 2, what do you do with Ronald Jones? Has he become a stay-away player based off where he's being drafted? 36 amongst running backs for Ronald Jones.
Especially, by the way, when you look at the moment, who's going around him. He's going 1 spot ahead of Adrian Peterson, ahead of Sony Michel, ahead of Jamal Williams. And I'm an Aaron Jones believer, but Jamal Williams is absolutely going to be the starter in Green Bay week 1 and has a chance to run away with a job, pardon the pun. He's going ahead of guys that I think have, bigger upside and Nick Chubb or Ty Montgomery, guys that could potentially, he's going ahead of Peyton Barber.
Right. He's going ahead too many players that I think we all agree should be drafted behind Ronald Jones, or ahead of Ronald Jones, I should say. I'm concerned. He did have an 18-yard catch, but he had 18 rushes for 18 yards in the first 3 preseason games.
Yeah, and their offensive line isn't great, so I don't know how much of it is on Jones, but there's just...
Oh, Barber's running
behind it. Exactly.
Barber,
that's the thing.
Exactly. That's my point. Barber has,
And the same thing happened, by the way, last year. Barber ran much more effectively behind that offensive line than Jaquiz Rodgers and Doug Martin and everybody else that was involved in the rotation.
That is correct.
The Raiders beat the Packers 13-6. We can keep this one quick because no Packers players of note among starters played in this game, or at least most of them did not. Aaron Rodgers did not play. Mike McCarthy has decided to do something that other coaches have also done, which is keep these guys fresh, worry about the regular season. Amari Cooper, though, was the flash play of the game. Very first play from scrimmage, Amari Cooper, 49-yard pass from Derek Carr.
Which was underthrown a little bit.
A little bit underthrown, but, Cooper's got one of those unique abilities to make catches and on throws that look accurate when he's catching them, no matter where they would have landed on average with a receiver. He's just got a unique ability to make big plays. Over the past 3 seasons, Derek Carr ranks second in deep touchdown passes. Is the value in Amari Cooper, Matthew, do you think it's most rooted in the vertical passing game, volume, or both this year?
I think it's both. John Gruden it's obviously been a while since he's been a head coach in the NFL, but he's had a 1,000-yard receiver every single season he's been an NFL head coach.
Yep.
11 different years. He's had at least 1,000-yard receiver. Who do you think that's going to be on the Raiders? It's going to be Amari Cooper. It is volume, obviously. Michael Crabtree no longer there. There's Cordero Patterson no longer there. I mean, there's a lot of targets, especially red zone work there for Amari Cooper, who's still just 24 years old. I have him as my wide receiver 12. I'm all in on Amari Cooper this year. I love Amari Cooper.
I just can't get over the dropsies.
Yeah,
it's not just one fluke season. It's
Yeah, it is an issue.
I would be like the whole fool me once, fool me twice.
But there's a guy that 2 years ago was going as a top 12 fantasy wide receiver, and obviously he disappointed last year.
Disappointed, and so I need to see it again before I buy it.
I'm all in on him. Real quickly though, we move past Tampa Bay. I just want to mention Chris Godwin very quickly, just a young player that they like for the Buccaneers, that they like quite a bit. You think about Deshaun Jackson, who's missed 9 different games over the past 3 years, has only 2 16-game years on his entire NFL career, last one coming in 2013. And Godwin, who averaged over 15 yards per catch last year, he's a very talented player that they seem to like a lot. They've already announced he's going to be part of the starting lineup along with Jackson and Evans. I just think Chris Godwin is an interesting guy, probably better for best ball and for keeper leagues than he necessarily is in 10-team redraft, but just a name to keep on your radar because I think he's a talented young player and I know they like him in Tampa Bay.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT can even close your garage door while you're at your kid's soccer practice to help keep criminals and critters on the sidelines. Now, that's what I call goal-keeping service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
Fantasy, you're in the whole 6010. Focus. Fantasy, focus.
Saturday afternoon brought some preseason action in Chicago. Cool to see these afternoon preseason games on weekends in the NFL. The Chiefs traveled to play the Bears. 27-20 was the final. Kevin White made the splash play for the Chicago Bears, catching a 29-yard touchdown from Chase Daniel. Again, as we mentioned, a lot of teams benched their starters.
But this, I think it caused quite a stir that the Bears did this because they have so many young players. Everybody thinks, Mitch Trubisky needs to get some more action and et cetera. And Nagy said, look, 25, 30 more reps for my offensive team isn't going to make that much of a difference. But I don't know. One concern for me is I haven't seen Allen Robinson. And here, Allen Robinson, I've been very high on his health coming into the season because he had that ACL tear, but it happened very early, week 1. And he was cleared to do everything back when the mini camp started. So he has been working with Trubisky, getting a rapport going, all those things that you like to see. But I certainly expected him to get some action. We talk about that exposure. You have to play in a game to really complete your final phase of rehab. It's hard for me to feel as confident about him when that's not going to happen until week 1.
Yeah, to your point, Stephania, a lot of people wanted to see a lot of the Bears, not just Allen Robinson, but Trey Burton because he's a new free agent signing. Mitch Trubisky in his second year in this offense, in this league under a new offensive coordinator and head coach, Mark Helfrich, and also of course Matt Nagy. But alas, it was no starters of note for the Bears. Kevin White, I feel like we've been fooled time and time and again. I think at this point I would be comfortable passing on Kevin White if he turns out to be a better player than I'm giving him credit for. 2 things. A, I'll be writing about him in the waiver wire column, which of course comes out following week 1 of the regular season. And B, if I have to have the egg on the face for missing on Kevin White, I'll be okay with it. There's so many other players that offer so much upside that I think are better values in your drafts. For the Chiefs, they did play their starters. The coolest play in this game to me was a somewhat nondescript pass to Tyreek Hill. If you look at the box score, it was like a 12-yard gain from Patrick Mahomes, but he's like falling to the ground, like about to land on his backside, throws with a lot of arm strength to Tyreek Hill, who catches it, turns around, gets like 5 extra yards. And then if you look at the end of the play, the way that he kind of catapults himself back up on his feet was awesome.
Yeah.
The guys are like, I don't know how he does that stuff. Remember when Zay Jones like mysteriously like hovered back up for the Bills last year? It was kind of like that. Interesting. Great play. It's on my Twitter feed, @Field Yates.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to see it,
I'm just watching it again, courtesy of Kyle.
Kind of like back salts.
That also speaks to his strength because he's falling backwards and still delivering the ball forwards. He's got a cannon of an arm. We've already seen that, and that was beautiful.
100%.
Daniel, just want to make sure that make sure we clip that where Field basically said Tyreek Hill and Zay Jones are kind of the same player.
Basically
very
the same.
Similar, basically the same. Where
Zay Jones is better than Tyreek Hill.
He was just saying like it was just very, he reminds him, Tyreek Hill reminds him of Zay Jones. Yeah. Zay Jones reminds him of Tyreek Hill. Just make sure we clip that. And if you could send it to me, I'll post that on social.
Right. Please,
just
if you
go
could
ahead
add to this, that Tyreek Hill will be inducting Zay Jones into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Right.
When he has his bust made and his gold jacket fitted for him, and probably, I don't know, they'll probably elect him next year. Just eschew the 5-year after retirement rule. Anything else for the Chiefs?
Will I get to induct you into the Hall of Fame when you're elected to the contributor section?
Think about it. I mean, honestly,
a lot of people do have their dads induct them.
I was going to say, this is so never going to happen that I can make Matthew happy and say sure, because it's never going to happen. Yes, of course you can, Dad.
I appreciate that. Do I get to marry you and Chapin?
You know what the good part is?
We have an officiant lined up.
You'll be so old you won't even remember.
Can I be the handcuff to the officiant?
Sure. Yeah, you can be the handcuff.
Like I'm a heartbeat away.
Right, yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah,
the vice officiant.
Our buddy Sam, who's been to a live show before.
Not Cowboy Sam.
No, not Cowboy Sam.
It's 7 foot tall Sam.
7 foot tall Sam.
At the Boston show last
I remember
year,
the tall guy.
Tall Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cowboy Sam is Daniel's buddy.
Yes, and he is not 7 feet tall.
He's not.
No, he's
Nor
not.
is he officiating the wedding.
So other than being tall, what does Sam have that I don't have?
A lot of things. He's got charisma, he's got wit, he's got charm. He's one of our best friends. He's from Nantucket. He's got a lot of connections to the island.
There it is.
So.
He's from Nantucket. That was the thing.
List was quick, too.
No.
It was like...
I know.
But one of his best friends. Wow. Wow, that hurts. I don't know. I always thought you and I. It's fine. No, it's okay. It's all right. I get it.
Friends.
No, I get it. I get it. I understand where I am in the pecking order.
A couple more games here to get through because we do have some preseason action.
My best friend?
We're on the clock here, Matthew.
Okay.
The Rams beat the Texans 21-20. I think we can breeze past this game as quickly as any because the Rams literally did not play any starters. John Kelly was the most notable takeaway from this game. I tweeted this with a clip of his run. I don't know that, not every handcuff is worth rostering or drafting. I believe, based on what we've seen from John Kelly, who even might not be the clear-cut number 2 going into the season, that if something ever happened to Todd Gurley, he would eventually emerge as a starter for the LA Rams. The dude is a 6th-round pick out of Tennessee. He runs hard, and he had an impressive touchdown run, just sort of barreling through the Texans' defense from the 15-yard line on 3rd and goal. I like this player.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, we talk about in my draft day manifesto, talk about sort of range of outcomes, right? And you want players that either obviously have a very narrow range of outcomes at a high level, Antonio Brown being the most obvious example, or players that have a range of outcomes that could, on a weekly level, where to start them. If something were to happen to if something were to happen to Todd Gurley,
right,
John Kelly would be a top 10 fantasy running back.
I don't know about that strong, but yeah, I feel pretty strongly he'd be like a top 10.
I would be ranking him inside my top 10 if Todd Gurley were out. Because I believe in his talent, I believe in Sean McVay.
Right.
So, yes, I am with you I am pro handcuff in fantasy football. And I am a believer in that, that is somebody that you should target, whether it is because you have Todd Gurley on your roster or whether because you want to, you're just looking for a high upside player because there is, and he would be on a short list with James Conner, with Chase Edmonds, with Latavius Murray, who's being drafted as a handcuff. He's going outside the top 40. Spencer Ware would be another guy. Austin Eckler, and we're going to talk about him in a second. So there's a handful of guys that I think should something happen to the starter in front of them, they would have significant fantasy value, and John Kelly is one of them. Oh, you're pointing at me because I have to do a live read for Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah. Right.
Well, listen, no matter what you do in the bathroom to get ready, Secret Squirrel, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. Not a hint, but kind of a hint. They have amazing shower stuff, hairstyling products, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and of course, razors and shave supplies. It says here, ask Field, Stephania, and Daniel which Dollar Shave Club products they enjoy. Field, what Dollar Shave Club product do you enjoy?
If I had to pick just one thing from Dollar Shave Club, their post-shave dew. Not only does it make your face feel soft and smooth afterward, it smells tremendous. Like, when you finish a shave and then you put the dew on, I feel like I not only shave, but I put cologne on at the same time.
Wow.
If I had to pick just one. But I've got a lot of them.
Which is fair enough. And that happens at least once a year when Field shaves.
I like the Amber Lavender Body Cleanser.
Okay,
yeah,
wow.
Because I like the scent.
Nice. Secret Squirrel?
I like the One Wipe Charlie's also because I like the scent. They smell good. And the shave butter. I usually use the shave butter first and then the One Wipe Charlie afterwards just to make sure that everything's all...
You don't shave. What do you use the shave butter on?
Then I use the One Wipe Charlie afterwards, Matthew.
The shea butter is really nice as well.
Smooth. Silky smooth.
Keep reading.
Hey.
I'd just like to apologize right now to Dollar Shave Club and say we've enjoyed having them as an advertiser. We wish them well on the other podcasts they're going to go to after they cancel their advertisement here. But we do enjoy Dollar Shave Club, and we apologize. Hey, listen, that's what they like, but you have your own way to get ready. You might shave your whole body to get ready for a bike race. Dollar Shave Club's executive razor and shave butter can help there. You might do your hair to get ready for your soccer match. Boogies by Dollar Shave Club can help you get your style right. The thing is, no matter what you do to get ready, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need. Right now, you can get ready with an amazing deal on any one of their starter sets. There are plenty to choose from, and you can't go wrong with any of them. Head over to dollarshaveclub.com/FFF to pick your own Dollar Shave Club starter set for just $5. After your starter set, products ship at the regular price. Make sure you check out their new video as well. That's dollarshaveclub.com/FFF. Once again, dollarshaveclub.com/FFF.
I thought we were going to do... Never mind, okay.
Are we doing something else?
Nope, here we go.
You want me to talk more about Dollar Shave Club?
Moving along.
You want me to explain what Daniel does with those One Wipe Charlies?
No, I do not, Matthew. Let's move along to the Steelers and the Titans.
Because I can.
Steelers win 16-6 for Pittsburgh. Obviously, no Le'Veon Bell still. We saw Ben Roethlisberger play a little bit. And 4 of his 6 passes when he completed when targeting Juju Smith-Schuster. I think the takeaway here for the Pittsburgh offense is really this. James Conner continues to look really good this preseason. The numbers did not blow you away as a runner, but 6 catches for 52 yards. We just talked about John Kelly as a viable handcuff that you should consider rostering.
Connor's
James
another
Conner,
one.
absolutely in that conversation.
100%. 100%. I mean, we've seen it with D'Angelo Williams. I mean, the way that offense runs and what we've seen out of James Conner in very small sample size, you would expect him to get a significant workload. I think you'd see some Jalen Samuels in there as well. But yes, if you roster Le'Veon Bell, I think James Conner is a must draft.
For the Titans, I'll just say this. It was sluggish on the offensive front. I'm reserving the right for this offense to get collectively much better when the preseason ends and the regular season rolls around. But we did get some good news about Rashard Matthews, who passed his physical and is now off PUP. We do know it was a knee injury, but Rashard Matthews should be back in the fold for this offense in relative short order. The Andrew Luck, Jimmy Garoppolo showdown we were all waiting for took place. Andrew Luck finishes 8 for 10 for 90 yards and a 15-yard touchdown pass to Eric Ebron. I think, honestly, though, every time Andrew Luck plays his preseason, my biggest takeaway, Stephania, is that he's still healthy. That's it.
I think people asking, were you worried because this performance wasn't quite as sharp as the last one? And the answer is no. You divide it into 2 parts. The health issue and the rustiness from essentially not having played football in 2 years. And the health issue's been answered. I know we still haven't seen a lot of the deep ball, and people are wondering, saw him throw a couple in practice. That's not an issue. Doing it in a game situation, yes, but that goes back to the overall football rustiness component. He's been hit. He's gotten back up. He's scrambled. He's shown that he can that he can throw in all different directions. The health question's been answered. Might it take a few games for him to get back in sync with everyone and look like his old self? Sure. But we always anticipated that.
Andrew Luck in the 9th round continues to be a great value. He's QB8 off the board. Again, because the position is so deep, he's very much worth the gamble for me. You mentioned the touchdown pass to Eric Ebron. Just want to take a quick moment to remind everyone, he's Eric Ebron. Stop it.
Right.
Jack Doyle. Give me all the Jack Doyle. I want all the Jack Doyle.
Jordan Wilkins finishes, or at
Would
least...
you like to take a board bet, Jack Doyle versus Eric Ebron? Because I see it in your eyes that you're so part of loving Eric Ebron. That's fine. I say Jack Doyle has more fantasy points than Eric Ebron.
Put it on the board.
There you go. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. There you go. Done. Just won another board bet over field.
Well done, Matthew. Yeah. Congratulations. Jordan Wilkins gets 14 carries, or gets a start, 14 carries for 28 yards. Nyheim Hines, 5 carries for 0 yards. We have said this on many occasions on this podcast. There are very few backfields that in the NFL, but there are a few of them that you just stay away from entirely. And when we last talked about the Colts, I was starting to feel like I'm spading them collectively. And I'm feeling stronger about that right now.
You haven't seen Marlon Mack. You don't know for sure that you will see him week 1. I mean, there's not been any word of a setback, but hamstring, and they obviously want him for the long haul. So I think it just gets cloudier when he gets back into the mix.
Well, we just haven't seen the offensive line perform particularly well. You know, I sort of liked Nyheim Hines earlier in the year. They were going to use him in the Darren Sproles role, and I could see him having value later in the season once he learns a little bit more of the offense. But right now, I agree with you, Field. I would say if I'm drafting a Colts, I don't mind Jordan Wilkins as a late round flyer. But if I have to pick one Colts running back, just given what we've seen so far of their rushing offense, I guess I'm going to go with Marlon Mack because at least there's a big playability with Marlon Mack and that they could try to get him in space. But I'm with you in terms of I'm not wasting any significant draft capital on any Colts running back. It's nothing more than a late round dart throw.
The Ravens beat the Dolphins 27-10. Lamar Jackson 7 for 10 for 98 yards with a 21-yard touchdown pass to Devere Posey. He also had a 19-yard touchdown rush. You know, again, by the way, did we get the news? I think it came while we were over the weekend. Maybe some more pertinent. We'll get to other rookie Raven in a second here.
Hayden Hurst, is that where you're going?
Yes, but on Lamar Jackson, like, is he even draftable in redraft leagues?
Yeah, I mean, if you in a deeper league, if you want to take sort of a flyer, I think he could be. I wouldn't roll my eyes at it. I'm probably not going to do it. I will say this. If I was in a keeper league of the rookie quarterbacks, he's my number 1 pick. Over Baker, over Darnold. And I realize the mechanics are awful. And this is the difference between fantasy football and real football. Because if we were talking just real football, he would have been, QB5, if not later for me. But in terms of fantasy, because of the rushing, think about Terrell Pryor as a quarterback. Right. He was fantasy relevant. Think about Tim Tebow as a quarterback. Fantasy relevant. The rushing ability of Lamar Jackson will produce tremendous amounts of fantasy points whenever he's the quarterback, regardless of the flaws in his throwing game right now.
How about Hayden Hurst, Stephania? Because he was a player with some promise. Rookie tight ends rarely making an immediate contribution in fantasy football, but now he's got an injury.
Yeah, and we know the Ravens, Joe Flacco likes his tight ends, and Hayden Hurst, like you said, showing some promise. Stress fracture in his foot, had a procedure Friday to put a screw in. They've given a timetable of 3 to 4 weeks, but I would say don't count on that. It usually ends up being a little bit longer. Guys have soreness in the foot, and they want to make sure it's healed well enough that he's not going to be out again a few weeks later. So I would say the long side of that would be more likely than less.
That's too bad. I don't think anybody was considering him a top 20 tight end going into the season, but there was the possibility for that to happen for Hayden Hurst. On the Dolphins side, Matthew, you feel as though Danny Amendola, who had a 16-yard touchdown catch in this game, is a good value late in your draft.
I really do. When you think about what the Dolphins do, 2014 through 2016, obviously Tannehill banged up last year, but 2014 through 2016, Ryan Tannehill completed the 6th most passes to the slot. I mean, we saw how Jarvis Landry just sort of ate in that role. Danny Amendola is a good player. He's a good, his issues have been health related, not talent. Yeah. So as long as he is healthy and where he's currently going, ADP of wide receiver 55, I'm slightly higher than that. I mean, I think Amendola in PPR leagues is going to produce a lot of value. Going to be, definitely outperform his ADP of wide receiver 55 as long as he is healthy. I'll also just say this. I think Kenny Stills, who was a top 30 wide receiver last year, sort of being left for dead. I mean, his ADP is even worse than Amendola's, I think.
Right. He's one of the best values in drafts right now.
He's
Kenny
wide
Stills
receiver 45.
Yep.
And again, he was a top 30 wide receiver last year with Jarvis Landry there. And now Landry's gone, and I don't expect Amendola to get all of Landry's targets. So, especially in the red zone. So Kenny Stills, I think, wide receiver 45 is just a ridiculous value.
Adam Gase said today that he doesn't even know if Devontae Parker will play in week 1 because of that finger injury. The Jaguars beat the
death taxes, and we're waiting for Devontae Parker to break out. The only 3 things he can count on in this world. Who breaks out first, Eric Ebron or Devontae Parker?
Neither. The Jaguars beat the Falcons 17-6, and the real story of this game is what we just found out now. Mm-hmm. The Jaguars have announced that Marquise Lee is out for the year, Stephania, because of a knee injury.
Yeah, I think we all knew it was coming. I think we were surprised we hadn't heard something before now. But sometimes there are reasons that teams have where they want to have conversations with the player. They sort of want to get all the ducks in a row before they go and make the announcement, because obviously it's going to have a big impact. We feel for Marquise Lee. It didn't look good when it happened. He was carted off the field. They have not said much. Doug Marrone spoke to the media this morning and simply said Marquise Lee suffered a knee injury and will have surgery later today. He will be placed on injured reserve. Look, I'm not surprised that they're not saying much about the nature of it. It's important to remember that even if they know the primary ligaments that are damaged, it's not until you go in for surgery. Sometimes you find out there's meniscus issues, there's cartilage issue. The complete extent of the injury may not be known until surgery. And so they leave it at that. And we all wish him well going forward, but they will be without Marquise Lee this season.
We certainly wish Marquise Lee well going forward. Yeah. And we know we also have people that are going to wonder what this means for the rest of the wide receiver group. What is the quote unquote fallout, Matthew? And from here, who becomes the number one wideout in Jacksonville that you want to roster?
I think it's probably Keelan Cole. I like D.D. Westbrook as well. I prefer those two over Dante Moncrief or DJ Shark. It's interesting. So our friend Graham Barfield put this tweet out. Jaguars' first-team offense has run 53 pass plays over the last two preseason games, the Minnesota and Falcons game. First-string wide receiver snaps on pass plays are as follows. Keelan Cole played 79% of the snaps. Dante Moncrief, 58% of the snaps. D.D. Westbrook, 49% of the snaps. DJ Shark, 26% of the snaps. I feel like that's a little bit more of a function of trying to get Dante Moncrief up to speed and familiar with Blake Bortles. But I like D.D. Westbrook. Remember, Keelan Cole, I believe, was a top 5 fantasy wide receiver from like week 14 on last year, week 13 on, something like that. So Keelan Cole is a very talented wide receiver. D.D. Westbrook probably not going to get a ton of touchdowns, but also somebody they like a lot. So those would be the two guys, and I think they're both worthy late round flyers.
Yeah, I'd agree
in that order.
I'd agree on those. Volume play is D.D. Westbrook. Upside play with yardage is Keelan Cole. 750 receiving yards last year for Keelan Cole. Because of that, Marquise Lee. That really was the dominant story for Jacksonville in that game. The Saints beat the Chargers 36-7. Another one of those games where we saw the starters, albeit somewhat briefly. I think maybe the takeaway, though, is not like, Alvin Kamara found the end zone. That's what happens when you're Alvin Kamara. But maybe Traquan Smith is the name to note from this outing, because Traquan Smith kind of making some noise down there in New Orleans, Matthew.
He's been terrific all preseason. Like, it's not just like one game. 11 for 147. He's had at least 3 catches in all 3 games. Cameron Meredith still trying to find his way onto the field, coming off that off-season surgery. Stephania, Ted Ginn is still there. I'm live on Twitter, America. And Europe. And Europe. So
elsewhere around the globe.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? Whatever language you speak, Ted Ginn is, yeah, Ted Ginn. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, so he's still there too, but yeah, Traquan Smith, a rookie that's just been really, really impressive. Again, we sort of talk about late round flyers. The number 2 wide receiver for the Saints is going to have fantasy value this year. And whether it's Cam, whether it's Traquan Smith, whether it's probably Ted Ginn right now. I sort of like Cam Meredith, but both these guys have significant upside. Traquan Smith is maybe not somebody that you're drafting right now, but a name to keep on your radar. And it wouldn't surprise me if Cam Meredith, again, still slow to start, if Traquan Smith is on your waiver wire column after week 1's action.
Yeah, based on what Smith does. For those who watch college football extensively, remember that UCF team last year. He was a star for that UCF high-powered offensive attack. I made this point during Double Trouble.
National champions. That's right. The UCF national champions. Thank you very much.
Last year, the Saints took a running back in Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round when many of us weren't thinking that running back was a top need. Same thing this year. They took a wide receiver and Traquan Smith in the 3rd round. You're like, yeah, they don't really need a wide receiver. Tells you they probably really like this player. Think you can do something for them sooner rather than later.
One real quick last mention off of this game. Just want to mention Taysom Hill, who had another nice game. Taysom Hill, backup quarterback, mobile. Like, again, we just sort of talk about dynasty leagues. If you're in a deep dynasty league, I don't know when Drew Brees hangs it up, but whenever it happens, Hill's going to be their starting quarterback, and he's going to be very fantasy relevant. He is a good player, and they like him a lot in New Orleans. That is my belief, is that he takes over for Brees whenever Drew decides to call it quits and head to the Hall of Fame. I wonder if Drew Brees will ask me to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
I would imagine. He'll say, Matthew, can you induct me into the Hall of Fame?
To which I will say, no, I'm waiting for Field Yates. I only want to do one Hall of Fame induction
delicious looking beignets.
Sure that's exactly what Drew Brees is
By the way,
thinking.
my beignet photo is blowing up.
By that I mean not thinking that at all.
I've gained like 2,000 followers on the IG just in the last couple of days. I'm telling
NBD,
you.
you're welcome.
No big deal. That's right.
John Ross.
By the way.
For those of you that watch SportsCenter today, you'll notice that the number one play of the weekend was John Ross's 57-yard touchdown catch. It was awesome. It was fun to see. John Ross,
like
the electric Washington. He was unbelievable at Washington. He catches this pass about 50 yards down the field, and yet in the final 7 yards managed to avoid 3 separate Bills defenders and maybe break a couple ankles along the way. The question is this. By the way, he did drop a pass on like the very next drive, but still. John Ross, has he done enough? Has he shown enough? Has there been enough evidence, Matthew, that you think he is worth a late-round flyer?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I feel like better in best ball. I mean, I just feel like he's going to be, again, one of these guys who sort of, he's a big play threat that is going to have like 4 or 5 games that are awesome. I just don't know that he has, especially in a Cincinnati offense, especially if Tyler Eifert's healthy.
Yeah. Tyler Eifert did get back on the field this week. It was nice to see. Happy for him.
And it's interesting, like Joe Mixon had a 23-yard reception. They're using him more and more in the passing game here. Sure. So that was really interesting. Had a nice play there. So, I mean, it was an unbelievable play and showed off his athleticism and showed you how why the Bengals used a first-round draft pick on him.
Yep.
And why they were so excited. But I feel like he's going to be a better NFL player than consistent fantasy player.
I think in a couple of years you might see them as the more consistent fantasy threat. My big takeaway was this, besides Tyler Eifert, was that Andy Dalton's got a chance to be, again, one of those late-round, not even drafted quarterbacks that could be a very viable bye-week fill-in for you. For the Bills, again, we didn't see really anything of note on the offensive side of the ball. A bunch of starters down. I think for now, the Bills are a team that we will be giving, there won't be a lot of fantasy chatter surrounding many players in the Bills week to week right now. That's just the reality of it at this time of the year. Last one here. And really, I mean, like,
before we do that last one, why don't we give the people what they really came here for, Field?
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
Couple of different things that I want to announce very quickly. First off, a lot of people tweeting me photos of the draft board that they have bought and used at Bed Bath & Beyond, available online at bedbathandbeyond.com. If you would like me, I have made this promise. I will grade every single draft.
I saw you offer that up last night.
Yeah, I've been doing it. So if you want your league to have, I will grade your draft. But you have to do it on a Fantasy Life draft board available at Bed Bath & Beyond, every Bed Bath & Beyond store or bedbathandbeyond.com. So what you do is obviously buy the draft board, use it, take a picture of the used draft board, and then send it to mbfantasylife@gmail.com. mbfantasylife@gmail.com. I'm not going to be answering fantasy questions there. Please only send the Bed Bath & Beyond stuff there. Or if you have funny loser videos or something like that, you can send that there. If you're looking for something free, Field Yates.
Okay, I like free stuff.
How about our newsletter, the Rotopass newsletter? We do that every single day. Comes out 100% free. Just go to rotopass.com and sign up for the newsletter. Tons of great nuggets and news and notes every single day. We do a really good job with it. It's me and my fantasy minions. So, be sure to check that out. Even if you don't want to pay for Rotopass, just get the free newsletter. It's fantasy nuggets and info in your inbox every single morning. Go to rotopass.com and you can sign up for the newsletter right there.
Last game of the weekend was the Cardinals and the Cowboys last night. Final was 27-3. My takeaway is this. If you watch that full game, good on you.
Yeah.
Either that or you're lying.
I get a pat on the back for that. I had that game on the whole time. I was asking myself that question throughout, but
when people tell me that football is becoming less popular, I respond and say, I bet you if you see the TV ratings for last night's game between the Cardinals and the Cowboys, that will be my counterpoint to that. Rico Gathers caught 5 of 7 targets for 30 yards. That was cool. Mm-hmm. No, a largely meaningless game in terms of fantasy relevance.
My biggest takeaway from that game was the David Johnson conversation with Michelle Tafoya on the sideline when he talked about She asked him literally if he'd made any adjustments because of the wrist injury. He said no, didn't have to at all. Not only was he totally healthy, but he said all the time he spent with Carson Palmer studying and learning felt like he was a better football player, and that he thinks he will have a bigger year than he did in 2016. Obviously, a player's going to say and hope for that, but I think just the fact that he was saying there was really nothing that he had to do. If anybody was worried, he gave you the sign off, he's fine.
Couple of polls to close out the show. Who are you drafting first? Royce Freeman gets 52% of the vote over Derrick Henry at 28% and 20%.
Voters got that one right. Voters got that one right. Nice job.
Is Christian McCaffrey a first-round pick? Yes, 31%. No, say 69%.
America got that one wrong.
Interesting.
They got that one wrong. You
really
guys got that one wrong.
How the right
We're talking
and wrong
PPR scoring
correlates with you.
Yeah, I'm right. America and Europe is wrong. Can they vote in Europe?
They can. Not only that, we had someone from Brazil watching the show today.
How about that, Matthew? You were
international. We have an international audience. I know. I hope they do roast you.
All right.
And work on your geography. Why don't you go look up where all these places are? We know you.
I know where Brazil is. It's where people go to get waxed.
Tomorrow on the show, we'll be picking the brain of Stephania Bell and some of the top injuries. I'm just going to let that one pass right there. Some of the top injuries around the NFL. Plus, we have to still induct a few more. Maybe more than a few more people into the men's and women's leagues. In the meantime,
I hope to have an announcement about the Celeb League tomorrow as well. So we got all sorts of stuff. If you have a question about injuries, tweet us at Fantasy Focus, or email the show, fantasyfocuspodcast@gmail.com, right?
She is Stephania B87 on Instagram. She is Stephania_ESPN on Twitter. He's Matthew Berry, TMR, everywhere except for the Fantasy Life app. He's just at Matthew Berry.
At Matthew Berry.
I'm at Field Yates. Talk to you tomorrow.
Check out the Fantasy Show on ESPN Plus coming in later today. Peace out.